The Last Supper, a very important religious festival. Passover was approaching. The religious leaders were plotting on how to kill Jesus, but they were afraid of people's reactions. Judas was one of Jesus' 12 disciples, went to the religious leaders to discuss the best way to betray Jesus. They were delighted to find somebody who was willing to do this, and they promised to give him money. So he agreed and began looking for an opportunity to betray Jesus so they could arrest him when the crowds weren't around. Jesus told Peter and John to go into Jerusalem and get everything ready for the special meal. He told them to follow a man carrying a jug of water. He would lead them to an upstairs room where they were going to all have the Passover meal. They went off into the city and found everything just as Jesus had said, and they prepared the Passover meal there. Jesus and his disciples sat down to have the Passover meal together. They remembered what had happened to their people when they had been slaves in Egypt, and how God had looked after and saved his people from slavery during the time of Moses. Jesus took some bread and gave thanks to God for it. Then he broke it into pieces, gave it to the disciples, saying, "This is my body, which has been given for you. Do this and remember me." He then took a cup of wine and thanked God for it. Then he said, "Take this drink, for this is my blood, which confirms the promise between God and his people, and is poured out as a sacrifice for you." Now Jesus began to feel sad, and he said, "I tell you the truth, one of you sitting at this table and eating this meal will betray me." The disciples wondered who he could be, and talking about it, why anyone would do such a thing. Jesus said, "It is the one that I will give this bread to." He then gave it to Judas and said, "Hurry up, do what you're going to do." So Judas left at once, and he was going out into the night. Jesus taught his disciples many things that night. He said, "You are my friends if you do what I command. You are my friends since I have told you everything that God has told me. I am going to send you God's Spirit. He will bring you peace and remind you of all the things that I have said to you. And he will continue to tell you the things that he hears from me. You didn't choose me, I chose you. I appointed you to go and tell the others what you have seen." Later in that evening, Jesus and his closest disciples left the meal and went to a nearby garden to pray.